When you think of a medieval queen, what image flickers in your mind? Perhaps a gleaming crown of gold resting upon perfectly styled hair, a figure wrapped in flowing silk, the scent of roses trailing behind her, strolling through palace gardens as the sun glints off jeweled rings. But I'm about to tell you something that will crack that picture like shattered glass. Beneath those glittering crowns, tiny lice made their kingdom. Hair, not perfumed, but alive with movement. Beauty rituals that, if I whispered them in your ear today, might make you turn away in disgust. And yet, in their time, these things were not shameful. They were symbols of grace, power, and refinement. So today, we will open the palace doors together. We will step inside. And I must warn you, once you see what lies beyond them, the dream of royal life may never look the same again. The heavy oak doors groan as they swing wide. You enter, and your eyes are drawn upward. Marble columns rise like frozen rivers, climbing all the way to a painted ceiling. Sunlight pours through stained glass, spilling shards of color that dance across the polished stone floor. Along the walls, portraits stare back at you, serene faces of queens who ruled centuries ago, their frames carved and gilded as if to hold their memory in eternal light. At the far end of the hall, a chandelier hangs like a cluster of frozen stars, its soft glow pooling over the room in golden warmth. And then, there's the scent. At first, it is pleasant. A drifting ribbon of perfume and rosewater, delicate, sweet, almost heavenly. But as you take another step, something shifts. That sweetness carries a weight now. Thick, stale, and strangely unfamiliar. It is not entirely foul, but not entirely pleasant either. It prickles your nose, clings to the back of your throat. You try to ignore it, but with each step forward, it grows stronger. Suddenly, a sharp voice rings through the hall, the clipped, clear tone of a palace maid. The queen is approaching. Every servant lowers their head at once, like reeds bowing in a sudden wind. Without thinking, you take a small step back. At the far end of the corridor, she appears. A golden crown glimmers in the filtered light, perched upon a wig studded with pearls, its pale curls spilling neatly over her shoulders. A gown of deep blue silk flows around her, its embroidery catching the glow of the chandelier like threads of water. From a distance, she is the image of majesty, a painting come to life. But as her figure draws closer, the illusion begins to crack. The air changes. That faint sweetness from before is swallowed whole by something heavier, a cloying scent that clings and smothers. A servant discreetly lifts a lace handkerchief to his nose. Another turns away slightly, eyes lowered, as if to shield himself from the truth. You feel the thought stir in your mind. This is the queen they praise from afar. But up close, the truth is different. She stops in the center of the hall, her gaze sweeping over the room without truly seeing it. As she passes you, her gown brushes your leg, and you feel that beneath the silk, the fabric is heavy with dampness. The wig atop her head, flawless from a distance, breathes out an odd mix of perfumed powder and stale sweat. Behind her, two maids follow in silence. In their gloved hands, crystal perfume bottles gleam. Every few steps, they press the pumps gently, sending a mist into the air as if to chase the truth away with fragrance. But the scent is only a veil, one that slips too quickly, letting the other smell bleed back through. Your eyes drift to the palace floor. The carpets, rich, patterned, impossibly fine, hide years of dust deep within their threads. Each step you take releases a faint creak, and a ghost of gray that vanishes in the air. The curtains lining the walls are thick enough to choke the light. When a breeze sneaks in through some hidden crack, they shiver, and with them comes a stale, heavy breath from the shadows behind. A servant glances over his shoulder, then leans just close enough for you to hear. Stay near the windows. The air in here will sicken you. You pause, your footsteps caught in the echo of those words. If the air itself can make a person ill, how have they lived like this for years? A sudden stale gust drifts from the shadowed corner of the hall and brushes your face. It carries with it something unseen. A quiet reminder that the true secret of this place has yet to reveal itself. You stand frozen, the servant's warning still echoing in your mind. The air inside makes you sick. Why, you wonder, could a kingdom so vast, so rich, not keep the very heart of its palace clean? From the bend in the corridor, a figure steps into view. An older man with a neatly trimmed beard, his robes heavy with embroidery, his eyes sharp and knowing. He is the royal physician, and by the look in his gaze, he already knows the question you have not yet spoken. He approaches at an unhurried pace, stopping only when the distance between you is measured in heartbeats. With a faint, almost amused smile, he says quietly, "You're wondering why they don't simply clean everything, aren't you?" You say nothing, and yet your silence answers him. He leans closer, lowering his voice as if sharing a dangerous secret. Because water is poison. The words catch you off guard. You blink, unsure if you've heard him correctly. He straightens, his tone carrying the weight of certainty. Our medical knowledge tells us water opens the pores, and when the pores open, bad vapors, illness, even death itself can enter the body. For a fleeting moment, his conviction almost convinces you. Then, with a calm finality, he adds, "For a queen, bathing is not merely foolish. It is as good as signing her own death warrant." A question rises unbidden to your lips. "So, they never bathe at all?" His answer comes with a short, knowing laugh. "In this palace, bathing means inviting death." You are still trying to grasp the depth of this belief when movement at the far end of the hall catches your eye. The queen approaches once again, wearing the same silk gown you saw her in earlier that day. The faint aura of perfume around her cannot fool you now. It is a veil too thin to hide the truth you have begun to understand. The thought drifts through your mind like a whisper. If they never bathe, then how does a queen even begin her day? Morning breaks beyond the palace walls. In the gardens, birds sing in the soft light, but here inside, the air feels heavy, unmoving, as though the night has not yet lifted. You stand before the door to the royal bedchamber. The scent that seeps through the gap is thick and layered, rosewater and perfumed powder, but beneath it, the musk of sweat, stale clothing, and a room untouched by fresh air. The hinges groan as the door opens. Beyond the silk curtains lies the queen's bed, golden wood draped in dark velvet hangings. At first glance, it is fit for royalty. But as you step closer, you see the pale yellow stains on the pillows, the velvet edges of the blankets darkened and heavy with dampness. The queen stirs, a faint groan escaping her lips. Her eyes open to the morning light. A maid steps forward, bowing deeply. "Good morning, Your Majesty." There is no bath to greet the day. Instead, a maid dips a soft cloth into rosewater and gently rubs it over the queen's neck, hands, and face. It is a ritual, not a cleansing, a performance that leaves the skin scented, but never truly clean. Another maid moves to a heavy wooden chest, lifting from it a gown that gleams in the dim light. Fresh, only in the sense that it has not been worn outside. It will be laid over the same undergarments that have not been changed for months. When the queen rises, a faint, stale warmth lifts from the bed and drifts into the air. The maids do not flinch. Instead, they reach for their perfume bottles and send a fine mist into the room, as if blotting out the truth is part of their morning duties. The queen settles before her mirror. Its silver frame glimmers, but the glass itself holds a subtle haze, the mark of years in a damp, enclosed space. Two maids flank her like sentinels. One uncaps a tall bottle, and the air thickens instantly with the heavy blend of rose and amber, so dense it almost seems to float in visible clouds. The other maid opens a small box, lifting a puff of scented powder. With delicate precision, she lets it fall over the queen's hair in a pale, fragrant snowfall. The powder comes first. The queen sits perfectly still as the maid begins, lifting the heavy wig, its pearls and ribbons gleaming in the dim light. It is beautiful, yes, but beneath the silk curls lies the truth. Months have passed without so much as a wash. A fine veil of scented powder falls over it, masking the thin sheen of oil and the faint sourness of old sweat. But the odor clings stubbornly, and when the maid gives the wig a gentle shake, tiny motes rise into the air. Perhaps not only the powder, but whatever has been hiding in those curls for far too long. The same pale dust is patted delicately along the queen's neck and hands, as though painting over the flaws of a precious tapestry. A soft cloth, damp with rosewater, is pressed lightly against her face. Then, a whitening powder settles across her skin, leaving her complexion ghost pale, its freshness no more than an illusion. One maid leans in, her voice barely above a whisper. "Your Majesty, there will be many guests in court today. Let's make the scent stronger." The queen's lips curve in the faintest smile, and she nods once. Immediately, the air blooms with another cloud of perfume, a dense, shimmering mist that swirls around her like the final polish on a priceless jewel. You watch in silence. All this fragrance, all this powder, all this perfume, layer upon layer, and none of it meant to cleanse, only to conceal. And in that moment, you realize the filth here is not only upon the skin. There is another kind, deeper and older, woven into the very air of these rooms. Your thought is interrupted when the queen turns from the mirror. "Now bring me my breakfast." The maid bows and slips from the chamber. The queen adjusts the pearls on her wig with practiced precision. Moments later, the door swings open. Two servants enter, one with a silver tray that catches the light, the other bearing a long, gold-handled jug. The tray is set before her. At first glance, the scene could be a painting. A small mountain of fruit glazed in honey, a golden, bread-like cake, a delicate bowl holding a thick, pale liquid. From the jug, a milk-white drink spills into a porcelain cup. But as the cup nears you, another scent drifts up, faintly sour, like milk that has slept too long outside its jug. You notice the fruit more closely now, the apple dappled with brown spots, a cluster of grapes softening at the edges. The queen takes a sip without hesitation. She bites into the honeyed cake, and a small piece tumbles to the table. Two tiny flies find it instantly. A maid flicks them away with quick, embarrassed hands. The queen doesn't seem to see. This is no accident. You know now. Palace food often lingers for hours, even from the day before. At banquets, dishes sit on the tables until the candles burn low, only to be served again later, untouched by heat or care. Even when the taste dulls and the scent turns stale, it is still royal enough to eat. Between bites, the queen murmurs to her maid, "Do not prepare my bath this afternoon. I want the fragrance to last longer." You hear it and understand. This is not merely belief, but a kind of pride. The idea that unwashed skin, layered with powder and scent, is a mark of dignity. When the last crumb is gone, the maids bring forth another wooden box. This one, small and ornately carved, is the beauty cabinet, a chest of guarded secrets, each more unsettling than the last. The lid creaks open. Inside, tiny glass vials catch the light, and cloth-wrapped pouches rest in neat rows. One maid lifts a vial between her fingers, its contents a deep, dark red. She bows slightly. "This is deer's blood extract, Your Majesty, to freshen the complexion." The second vial is lifted from the beauty chest. Its contents swirl thick and white, clinging to the glass like cream. The royal physician steps forward, his voice steady. "This is a blend of lead and coal, to make the skin bright and smooth." You feel the words catch in your mind. Lead, poison, yet here it is cradled like a treasure, a mark of elegance, not danger. Another maid steps in, shaking a fresh layer of powder over the queen's wig. But this is no simple cosmetic dust. It is laced with animal fat, intended to smother lice and fleas. In truth, under the summer heat, the fat softens and melts, releasing an even heavier rancid note into the queen's perfume-laden aura. You glance at the pale hairline beneath the wig, and you know, no water has touched it for months. Powder, sweat, grease, and scent have fused into something both solid and invisible. An unseen crown the queen wears more faithfully than the jeweled one. Then comes the most jarring sight. A maid bends close to whisper, her words like a secret meant for no one else. "For today's scalp treatment, we have brought fresh pigeon's blood, Your Majesty." The queen nods without a flicker of surprise, as though such offerings are as routine as bread and wine. You watch, and the thought presses in. Here, beauty does not mean cleansing. It means wrapping filth in silk, powdering it with pearls, and calling it divine. The queen is ready for court now, swaddled in perfume, her wig precise, her face a pale, gleaming mask. Yet you carry the truth with you, the truth that clings unseen. You step away from her perfumed cloud, only to be halted by a gentle hand on your arm. The royal historian stands there, his eyes bright with the kind of knowledge that has weighed too long on one man's tongue. From beneath his arm, he produces a heavy book, its leather cover worn, its pages yellowed but unbroken. When he opens it, the scent of old parchment rises, sharp as dried flowers kept for too many years. The first page reveals a familiar name, Isabella I of Castile. The historian's voice lowers. They say she was unyielding, that she endured the siege of Granada for 8 months without bending to her enemy. But the truth? She went those 8 months without a single bath. She saw it as piety, a devotion to God, while her clothes and bedding crawled with lice and fleas. The page turns. Queen Elizabeth I of England gazes out from a portrait, regal, composed, untouched by time. The Virgin Queen, the historian says, but her sweetness was not just in her rule. She devoured sugar, candied flowers, sweets, until her teeth rotted black. And in her time, black teeth meant wealth. So she darkened them with powder to make her decay look like dignity. Another page. Now the French court, painted silks, powdered wigs, elegance spilling from the edges of the frame. Their wigs were heavy with cost, and with life. Lice, fleas, sometimes worse, nested in the hair beneath. The wigs stayed on for months, and when the maids finally lifted them, the stench could empty a room. The book closes with a sigh. The historian's eyes meet yours. These are not just stories. They are truth. And truth is not always golden. The journey you began at the palace gates has not yet reached its darkest turn. The historian tucks the book under his arm and says quietly, "If you think the filth ended with the queen's body, come. Let me show you its other face." You follow him down a narrow corridor, the light thinning as you walk, until a door waits before you. When it opens, the air hits you at once, stale, heavy, and tinged with something sour. The curtains are drawn so tightly that the room breathes only shadow. At its center, the queen's bed rises high on golden-carved legs draped in deep red velvet. It is a sight to impress until you step closer. Old sweat stains mar the pillows. From beneath the blankets drifts a faint, acrid breath, as if the fabric has lain too long in damp air. The historian lifts one edge of the cover. Beneath, a thin wooden frame stuffed with straw, and in that straw, tiny pale insects wriggle slowly, unbothered by the light. "This," he says, "is the bed she sleeps on every night." In the corner stands a wooden chest. He opens it to reveal a heap of garments, their cloth heavy with moisture, their scent thick and musty enough to taste. The carpet spreads richly across the floor, until he lifts one corner to show the mouse holes beneath, the caked dirt pressed into the wood. He lets the fabric fall and gives a thin smile. Even after seeing all this, people envy royal life. Strange, isn't it? You can hardly picture what it would be like to endure a single night in that bed, to lie among the straw and velvet, the warmth of your own breath trapped in the stale air. When the door creaks open, a maid steps inside, silent and swift, her eyes lowered as she carries a small chest into the room. Without a word, she places it in the historian's hands and departs, her footsteps vanishing into the dim corridor. The historian glances at you, his expression unreadable. "Come," he says softly. "Now I will show you the palace's greatest secret, the one even the servants do not dare speak of." He lifts the latch with care. The lid opens on a sigh of trapped air. Inside, wrapped in thin bundles of cloth, lie the queen's undergarments. Their silks, once white, are now dulled to a shadow of cream. The moment the chest opens fully, a sharp, damp scent reaches you, sour with sweat, heavy with the stale breath of long-worn fabric. "To us," the historian murmurs, "these are not just clothes, they are a torment." In the palace, cleaning the queen's garments is a daily ritual, but here, cleaning means nothing more than scattering perfume or dusting powder over the surface. Water is rarely used. The delicate threads, the sewn-in jewels, are too precious to risk in washing. A maid hurries past you in the hallway, her face drawn and eyes rimmed red from sleeplessness. You hear her whisper to another, in a tone half bitter, half weary, "If they make me clean that wig again today, I'll quit." You follow the glance of her eyes and see what wig cleaning means. A small brush is used to lift away layers of powder and dirt, and sometimes to pluck out the tiny, unwelcome things that have made a home within. The work leaves red welts on the hands, the skin itching for hours. Some servants, the historian tells you, take to their beds with fever after the task. The price of touching the queen's crown. He leads you deeper into the palace's veins, to a small, dim room at the farthest edge of the servants' wing. Here, the air is thick and wet against your skin. "This," he says, "is where the past lingers." In one corner lies a mound of fabric, old clothes, curtains, bedding, stacked high, faint tendrils of steam curling from it. The mingling of dampness and decay creates a smell that seems to settle in the back of your throat. This pile will stay here for weeks, the historian explains, until someone remembers to scatter powder over it. That is all. The realization strikes you in the chest. Behind the gold and glass of the palace are people whose lives pass in the shadow of filth, whose lungs breathe in sickness every day. The historian guides you onward, down a corridor that narrows until the walls seem to press closer. The air changes again, heavier, wetter, with a sour tang that clings to your breath. "This is where they kept the sick," he says quietly. "Courtiers, servants, even nobles, when the rooms above were too near the queen." The odor is a layered thing: sweat, the rot of fabric soaked too long, and the sharp bite of burned herbs meant to cleanse the air. Fleas and lice, he tells you, were everywhere. Not just in clothing, but in beds, curtains, even the shadows between the floorboards. It was these tiny creatures that carried typhus, fever, weakness, and, too often, death. Measles, smallpox, pneumonia, they spread like whispered rumors in the still air of the palace. Windows were seldom opened, and cleaning was little more than perfume sprayed into corners. You pause at the doorway of an empty chamber. In the half-light, you see a bed, with loose straw scattered across it, the dark shape of old blood staining the stuffing. Beside the wall stands a wooden bucket, its rim crusted, its smell rising in a wave that forces you back a step. But you know now, this filth was not merely tolerated. It was celebrated. The historian leads you into a sunlit, echoing chamber, its walls lined with grand portraits of the queen. In each one she sits crowned in gold, draped in silks, her gaze steady and commanding, the curve of her lips fixed in the proud smile of victory. To an outsider, these images speak only of refinement, elegance, and unshakable power. But the historian's voice drops as he steps closer. These pictures tell only half the story. The other half is hidden here. In the far corner rests a plain, time-worn chest. Its hinges groan as he opens it. Inside, folded with ceremonial care, lie garments dulled by age, their once bright fabrics blotched with old sweat, their folds heavy with layers of powder. He lifts one, holding it up so the light catches the faded embroidery. "This," he says, "is the gown she wore during her most famous speech. The day the court cheered her dignity. No one imagined what lay beneath. For the queen and her court, this was never a failure of hygiene. It was a declaration of rank. Not bathing, wearing the same clothes for weeks, masking odor with perfume instead of removing it. These were emblems that said, 'We are not like ordinary people.' To suggest otherwise was unthinkable. An old tale lingers in the palace of a royal physician who once dared to suggest a bath. The next morning he was gone, dismissed without a word. The historian's eyes hold yours. This pride was stronger than the palace walls. It turned filth into sanctity and hid reality inside a legend. But your journey is not over. The historian closes the chest and steps back. "Now," he says, "you will spend a day inside the palace, from the first breath of morning until the last shadow of night." The first rays of sunlight slip past the high palace towers, but the heavy velvet curtains in the great hall drink in the light, casting the room in a dim, amber half-shade. You stand at the center, the air thick with a strange blend of rose water and something older, as if perfume had been poured over a cloth long left to sour. The queen sits on her throne, her gown pooling at her feet, her pearls catching what little light there is. Around her, maids stand in two perfect rows. some cradling bottles of perfume, others holding boxes of fine powder. Each time she tilts her head, a faint dust falls from beneath her wig. A maid's slipper presses it into the carpet before it can be seen. The court assembles. Guests in long, trailing robes bow as they approach the queen. Yet you notice it. That moment's hesitation, a brief stillness as the scent reaches them. It is subtle, but the perfume does not fully mask what lies beneath. By noon, the kitchen stirs with life. Large cauldrons bubble with meat, steam curling into the rafters. In one corner, yesterday's leftovers are pulled from the cold and reheated without ceremony. On the platters, flies land and are brushed away with the back of a hand. A movement so habitual it has no urgency. The queen retreats to her private chamber. Here begins another ceremony of scent. Amber smoke drifts in lazy ribbons, rosewater mists the air, and fine powder falls like pale snow. The maids dust not only her skin, but beneath her gown, their work more about concealing than cleansing. The palace fills with the low hum of music, feet tapping against the marble floors, the rustle of silks weaving through the air. The queen smiles at the dancers, but when one bows low before her, you catch the faint recoil in his body, so quick it might pass for grace. When the candles burn low and the corridors fall silent, you find yourself once more at the queen's bedchamber. The same heavy blankets, the same damp straw-scented air. She sleeps, her crown set aside, but nothing else has changed. This night will pass as every night before it, beneath a mingled veil of filth, fragrance, and pride. And in that stillness, you understand. To spend a day in the palace is to live beneath a weight as suffocating as the air within its walls. But one secret still remains, a secret that reveals itself only when the palace gates open, and the queen is no longer a figure of paintings and rumors, but a living presence before her people. The great doors groan as they swing wide, and the crowd, kept waiting in the courtyard, begins to file inside. Today, the queen will grant an audience. A rare gift, treasured like gold. Until now, the public has known her only through the language of portraits, a golden crown catching the light, a gown shimmering in soft folds, a face that seems to breathe the scent of roses. For them, this moment is a dream made real. You remain in the corner of the great hall. The queen sits upon her throne as her maids circle her like quiet birds, spraying a final mist of perfume, dusting her wig with another veil of powder, straightening the heavy garments hidden beneath her gown. The first delegation steps forward. They kneel, but as they rise, a fleeting expression crosses their faces, quick as a shadow, yet unmistakable to you. It is the scent, that same mingling of sweetness and decay you have breathed in every room of this palace. A woman gently urges her small child forward, hoping the queen will bless him with a glance. The queen leans down, smiling, but the boy's face tightens suddenly. He buries his head against his mother's shoulder, seeking the comfort of distance. The mother gathers him up and steps back. It happens so swiftly that no murmur runs through the hall. Perhaps no one else even notices. But you see it, and you know exactly why. This is the moment the truth settles into you like cold water. The gold, the jewels, the fragrance, all of it is a mask. Beneath it lies a reality so ordinary in this palace that it has long ceased to shock its servants, yet would be unthinkable to those who stand here in awe. The queen still smiles on her throne, and the crowd still gazes with pride. But you, having seen the rooms, the rituals, the beds, the fabrics, know that this dignity is filth draped in fragrance. The chapter closes. Past and present stand side by side in your mind. And you wonder, was royal life ever truly enviable? You step through the palace gates. The air outside is lighter, cleaner, sliding into your lungs like a relief you hadn't realized you needed. Behind you, the golden walls blaze in the sunlight, the towers cutting sharp lines into the sky. From here, it is a vision of paradise. But you know that within those walls, perfume and filth twine together until they are indistinguishable. Your thoughts turn to the present day, to the water we pour without fear, the fresh air we let into our homes, the clothes we change without a second thought. These simple habits, now ordinary, would have been scandalous to a medieval queen. They saw bathing as folly, sweat as a badge of rank, and perfume as a weapon against truth. You realize that royal life is not always about priceless gowns and gilded halls. Sometimes it is about shuttered windows, air gone heavy and stale, and secrets too strange for the outside world to believe. Your eyes fall on a small child in the square, staring at the palace with open wonder, his face alight with imagined splendor. For a moment, you think of telling him what you've seen, but you stop. Some truths are too heavy to pass to small hands, so you only smile and let him keep his dream. And so the journey ends, with the knowledge that beneath a crown's gleam there may not be gold at all, but the quiet, unending shadow of filth.